All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the channel. In the last few weeks, we've worked on the fundamentals: grip, stance, posture, and then alignment, at least alignment to a starting target. From there, we worked a little bit of the backswing. So now it's time to work the transition. Today, we're going to talk about how the transition works, why everybody that plays golf absolutely needs one, and how we're going to build yours. So stick around. A lot of information to cover, but I'll try to make it as brief as possible. And don't forget, we've always got the bonus content, so stay till the end. So most of you have figured out your backswing, which is essentially where we're trying to get to in about a month. We want to have a good grip, we want to have a good posture, good ball position, stance, very balanced, and then a solid backswing, one in which we're allowing it to go back by itself. We're allowing the physics of the toe to open the club for us. All we're trying to do is manage that so that we can set ourselves up perfectly for a transition. So first we have to talk about how the transition works and why it's absolutely necessary in the golf swing. I guess the best way to start this is to talk about geometry. Essentially, if we're looking at geometry, we also have to add a little bit of inertia physics, one-on-one type stuff in. But first we're going to start with a perfectly 90-degree angle, as though you were swinging from a single axis. Imagine through the club like so, and the club swings around that rod. Okay, the rod never moves, stays perfectly in space. So I'll just stick it through my belt buckle here to kind of give me some stability. You guys will see essentially what's going on. So if it comes all the way around that rod and all the way back through, it returns, hits the ball perfectly square every time, assuming the rod doesn't move. Okay? As we begin to angle the golf club, if we swing around that rod, watch what happens. You see how it comes naturally to the inside. Okay? Now, if we were to add multiple levers to this, i.e. our arms, forearms, hands, shoulders, core, the body is full of levers. But as we add levers and fulcrums and balance points to the golf swing, it starts to become a very complex movement. But we're going to simplify it. Because the golf club is at an angle, as the golf club comes back, gravity and inertia are going to affect it. That's all you need to know. You don't need to know how. We're going to get into the why, but you don't need to know how. We do know that the toe will open and it will close on its own, right? So in order for us to take a club back and through, we have to put it on a very specific kind of path because our body has no straight lines in it. Our joints are oblong, our capsules, shoulder capsules, hip capsules are oblong. Our spine is ovular. Nothing in our body is perfectly circular, perfectly round, or perfectly straight for that matter. All of our bones have slight bends to them to manage stress and also to help support the musculature, tendons, ligaments that go around the body. So when we're making a golf swing, we can't think in terms of straight lines. We have to think in terms of a plane line that is constantly moving. So because of this basic geometry, clubs at an angle, the basic physics, the fact that the toe is going to move independent of your body unless you control it, which we don't want in our golf swing, based on your setup and the way that you take the club back, it's going to always finish in the same position as long as you're not controlling it. So if you start it in one piece like so, it'll be very upright. If you use your wrist to bring it inside, it'll be very laid off and flat. None of these are wrong, so don't try to fix the backswing. You are responding to a weight. It has inertia. It's doing things in space. It has gravity, friction, all kinds of stuff affecting it. Do what's natural. If you rip it to the inside, that's fine. Your transition is going to be different than somebody that comes up on plane and stays perfectly on plane like an Adam Scott type of player. The key though is you must acknowledge the fact that we never take the club away perfectly on plane unless we set our body up biomechanically to do that, like Bryson DeChambeau or Mo Norman. So if you want to set your body up so that the club is going directly through your lifeline and you have a single plane of action, you're going to have to do certain things with your wrists, elbows, shoulders. They're going to keep you on plane at all times. You know, I would go to Todd Graves or something like that, or just follow Bryson's channel. He's given a lot of that information away. But as we've discussed in the past, you've come to my channel for a different reason. You're looking for something that holds up. It's pretty much always there because the physics of the golf club never change. Neither does the geometry for that matter. Because the physics of the golf club never change. Neither does the geometry for that matter. So when we show up to the golf course, the feels should be pretty much similar, even if we've taken a week or two off. So let's talk about the transition. Now that you understand that you have to have one, what's the best way to do it? Well, in the past, clubs were much heavier and they required to be shallowed a lot. There was a lot more swing weight, the shafts were heavier, the grips were full leather. I mean, they were a little bit spongy. So in some cases when they dried out, they were really hard, but back then they would take the club very upright, they would shallow it, and then they would kind of early extend out of the shot because they needed a lot of force to allow that club to stay on plane. Some guys like Byron Nelson kicked his knee in to keep it on plane. Lee Trevino bowed his wrist to keep it on plane. Hogan did some stuff. Sam Snead, he came over the top, but he had such mobility in his body, he could swing underneath himself and send it down the line. Everybody had a different way of doing it, but they all transitioned the golf club. So now that you understand that it's pretty much absolutely necessary, how do they do it in the modern game? Well, nowadays, guys like Xander Schauffele and Scotty Scheffler, the clubs are developed and built so you don't have to do a lot of this anymore. And the reason for that being is there's toe droop. So as you're coming through the strike, the inertia of the toe is going to bend your shaft downward. I'm going to post up a little picture here so you guys can see what I'm talking about. So what that essentially helps is it allows you to be a little more upright. It allows you to be a little more above plane, maybe slightly over the top, in order to hit the ball pure. So the modern game is designed for you to take it as much on plane as you can get it, shallow it just a little bit to get it back on plane and swing it. How are you going to do that? Well, stick around to find out. So biomechanically speaking, all of you are going to have to shallow the club differently. Some of you are going to have longer arms. You're going to need a lot more hand movement, wrist movement. Some of you are going to be very compact people, and you're going to use a lot more legs and body like Lee Trevino. First thing you need to assess is whether or not you need to do a lot of shallowing or you need minimal shallowing. And the best way to figure that out is to use our drill here. So what I want you guys to do to start is first we have to find out where we're starting from, right? Can't find out where we're going until we know where we are. Can't find out where we're going until we know where we are. So I want you to get these sticks as close together as you possibly can. From there, do your waggle, do all your basics, and then I want you to just take a golf swing. Okay, so now you should have essentially your divot. We've learned how to divot read. I'm not going to get into that again. But what's either going to happen is you're going to have come from the inside or you're going to have come from over the top. Those are the only two real choices. If you came from the inside, your divot will be going right, and it will, as you can see, create an angle between this shaft and the toe. If it was going left to target, it'll be the opposite, which is coming this direction, creating an angle between this shaft and the heel. Okay? If you're coming from the inside, you can't shallow the club too much because then you'll come more from the inside, and that'll create a big hook. If you're coming over the top, you'll have to shallow the club a little more because you'll be coming from the outside and you'll need to get to here. So for those of you that are coming too far from the inside, and the club face is shut, essentially that's what it's going to look like at impact. So it's pointed right of our target. The club face is pointed leftward of that, essentially, and we have quite a bit of forward shaft lean. This is fairly typical of someone that hits from the inside and has a very wristy takeaway, that type of golf swing. For you, you're going to have to work on your takeaway. And the reason for that being is, no matter what we do, if we bring it way to the inside, we have to do the opposing movement to bring it back on plane. So if we're here, it has to go here. It's the only way it works, because the body, again, it's always trying to balance. So if you notice, if I bring it way to the inside, right, what happens from here to hit the golf ball is I'm going to round myself out, because that's the only way. I have to drop and duck. In other words, I have to maintain balance because the shaft is behind me. Otherwise, I get stuck. I have to flip. We don't want that. If you're coming from over the top, you're going to have to learn how to shallow the club from here. Okay? It's pretty simple stuff. So first, we'll talk about from the inside. You're coming from the inside. I want you to work on a one-piece takeaway. It'll feel as though you have a triangle. It's all connected. But here's the deal. We're going to go back to last week's drill, and you're going to put this ball about 10 to 12 inches behind the other ball so that you make sure you hit it. If you get too handsy with this and you're at 10 to 12 inches, you're going to flip and it's going to miss the golf ball. Okay, so we want to make sure you're working in between your sticks down the line so that you get more on plane, not quite as inside. For those of you that are on plane, we'll say, but over the top, you're coming out of it and you're swinging like so. We're going to teach you how to come from the inside by transitioning the club like so. Okay? Your backswing is going to naturally change for this. You don't have to think about it. But just be aware, you're probably going to hit a few hooks to start out with. Don't stress about it. It will improve. So, if I were coming from over the top, like so, but I shallow the club, look what happens. Everything squares back up. Even though I was still making that movement, the club stayed in front of me. Here's how we train the shallowing of the club. Just a different angle for you guys before we jump into how to shallow the club properly, which most of you will need to do. Very few of you will come inside to inside, but those of you that do understand it's your backswing. It's probably just too far inside and there's nowhere for you to go. For those of you that are still here, thank you. So, we've gotten to this point in the backswing. How do we train the shallowing? How do we do this properly? So that when we get to here, we're in a position to strike the ball and we're not going to hosel it, thin it, block it, etc. Well, it's all in the way that you shallow the golf club. And that's probably why this is the most difficult skill to master. This is the most difficult skill to master. This is the most difficult skill to master. But before we can get into it, we have to discuss biomechanics. If you're a taller guy, you can't shallow it too much because you're going to always send the club rightward. You don't have a low enough center of gravity to bring it around your body on the proper geometric plane. Your clubs are going to be more upright, just how it is. If you're a shorter guy, you have a little more knee bend, you're going to have to shallow it a lot because your geometric plane is going to be flatter than others. So you have to understand that you need to be self-aware of your own body type and the geometry of your golf clubs before you start this process. And since we're discussing geometry and inertia, let's talk about gravity. Let gravity take your finger down to that subscribe button for me. Go ahead and click it. All right, now we can get back to it. Okay, so what's the proper way to shallow a golf club? Well, the answer is there isn't one. You're going to have to figure that out on your own. But here's my recommendation, 3 different ways of doing it that all tour pros have used over the years that are very consistent. The first is a wrist shallowing, where you take the club up very upright and you shallow your wrist like so. The second is a rerouting of the club, kind of like a Rory McIlroy, okay, where you take it up, you send it into the space with your entire chest. And the third is the Jack Nicklaus way. Well, a lot of the 90s, 2000s guys too, where you take it up and then you use your hips and keep a passive right arm. So those are 3 different ways to do it, but stick around. The bonus content is going to dig deep into that so you guys get a real sense of what you want to do. All right, you made it to the bonus content. So we're going to dig real deep here, guys. We're going to talk about each way of shallowing the club, what it will work better for biomechanically, and how it'll work better depending on the geometry of your golf clubs. So you can choose which style you want to work with the most, and then I will give you a quick synopsis on how to train it. There will be a more advanced techniques later on, but this will just get you guys started. So first and foremost, we have to talk about the golf club. You have to decide if these are the golf clubs you're going to play forever. If they are, and they have a lot of offset, which is this little ridge right here, if the club is set back from the shaft a lot, you're going to have a very different style of shallowing the golf club than someone like myself. If you're playing a very low offset club like a Blade, or in this case, this is a JPX Tour, you will need to really shallow the club because you won't have the offset to help turn the toe over at impact. So that inertia is not there, all right? For those of you playing higher offset clubs, we'll call them intermediate to beginner clubs, you're not going to need a lot of shallowing. So the best way for you to do it is to take the club back in between our sticks here to continue doing our drill, like so. And then from here, I want you to stop. And then you're just going to reroute the club with your legs and your body to get it back on plane. And the idea is I want you to try to match the shaft to this alignment stick. You're going to do this 5 times. So put a ball down 6 to 12 inches behind it, depending on how advanced you want to get. You're going to take it back very slow. You're going to stop. And you're going to reroute the club until it's right in front of you like so. Okay? That is if you are playing offset clubs. For those of you that are playing less offset, you get to use the other 2 options. The first of which, we take the club back, take it here, and we use only our wrists, okay? And as we're doing that, what you'll notice is that your body wants to naturally open up. And from there, you're going to bring it to the slot, and notice it's in the same position as the other club. We just used a lot more body to get it there, okay? And then finally, the third option, again, it's the same drill. Everybody hits the ball, they pause, they shallow, they bring it to here, and they stop. Don't hit the ball. We will get into that drill later on. So most of you can do this from home. You don't even need to be at the range. But if you hold on to the very end, I'm going to give you a drill you can take directly to the range. It's going to be a ton of fun. All right, so the third I said was we fire our hips. So we take it up, and then we fire our hips with a passive right arm. In other words, we maintain, we've all heard this, right? We maintain the tray. We don't allow the tray to flip over. All right? So you're going to give this as many reps as you can give it a day. And eventually, you'll find a slot. And that slot will be what you take to the driving range. All right, thanks for watching. If you stick around, I'll give you the range drill. Okay, so before I go any further, I just want to remind you these are not the only ways to shallow the golf club or to get essentially the golf club back on plane so you can strike it well. But there are 3 ways that All tour pros have used over the years, and they're very easy to learn. But I promised you a range drill. It was going to be a lot of fun. So here it is. Biomechanically, we have billions and billions of nerve receptors in our body, which build neural pathways throughout the body so that if we train them correctly, we can repeat the motion because we have essentially what's called feel. Now, in golf, feel is not real, but it's the feedback that we need in order to learn a skill. So here's the drill that's going to build that feedback properly by developing your feels. First, we're going to get into position, set up just like we did before. Everything is the same. We're going to take the club back as we did before. We're going to come into this position, we're going to stop. And then we're going to hit the ball by pumping and then hitting. Like so. Okay? From there, you're going to have an essential feel of impact. Don't worry. Some of you are going to blade it, some of you are going to shank it, hosel it. I've practiced this drill, that's why I was able to do it first try. But again, the drill is simple. We put a ball behind it. We roll the ball back. We shallow into position. Then we pump, hit. This is a very, very advanced and extremely difficult drill. Try to do it slowly at first. Give yourself room. Take your time. Go very slowly. There we go. That one was heavy. Eventually, you'll have a pretty consistent feel. You might look a little silly on the range, but after about 4 or 5 of those, I want you to step in. I want you to turn your brain off, and I want you to just try to repeat the feel. Like so. What you're going to start feeling and understanding is that neural pathway that you're building is brand new. And so the feels are going to be very vibrant. So about every 4 or 5 balls, make sure to hit one full. And I wouldn't swing hard, give it maybe 50% effort. Nothing crazy. And then go back to the drill. If you're older and it hurts to get into this position and pump, you're not ready for this drill. You're going to have to go to the gym and you're going to have to work mobility. So be aware of that. If you're younger and you're doing this and you're pulling it over the top every single time, that means you're not maintaining this angle as you take it back on the pump. Okay, so in other words, you're doing this or you're doing this. There's a big difference. Keep that shaft directly in line with your alignment stick. It should be parallel to it. One more angle at this drill. Now you get to see it a little bit kind of caddy view, so you can have both down the line and see my body postures. So again, I'm going to take the club back. We're going to take the club back, shallow, bring it parallel to our spot here, and then pump, hit. That one was heavy. That means that my ball position was too far forward to pump and hit it and release it properly, which means that essentially I haven't built up the strength of my forearm because I haven't done this drill in a while. So for those of you that are doing that, real simple fix. And again, just down the line here, just keep this thing going. We're just going to move it back in our stance. And that'll give you just a better strike so it won't feel so harsh on your forearms. Take it back, shallow, parallel to our stick. There we go. Now the strike is better. Our divot is much better. Everything is better. Again, do 4 or 5 of those. And then I want you to step in. You should have a pretty good feel. Find your target, swing away. Just like so. All right, guys, good luck with this. Comment, like, subscribe. We'll see you next time.